Good morning, my friends. I'm Pastor Ben Hayes from First Baptist Church, Dadeville, Alabama, bringing you our thought for the day in front of my freshly painted wall. Thank you, Janice Brown, for doing such a great job. And it is a wonderful Wednesday because we've got lots of things going on. See you at the poll at 7:15. By the time you see this, it's going to be over. 10 a.m. our men's and women's Bible studies this afternoon, 4:45. Our family night supper, 5:45. Our evening activities, including a special call business meeting and all of the choir practices. Youth and children are meeting. So come and be a part of it. It's going to be good. But right now we're in Hebrews chapter 11. We're continuing with this roll call of faith. We come down to verse 20. We dealt with Abraham yesterday. Remember, Abraham offered his only begotten son to God. Almost killed him, almost sacrificed him, but God stopped him and provided the sacrifice that he needed. But Isaac was the promised son. Even though Abraham had another son, Ishmael, he did not come through Sarah. He came through Hagar, the handmaid, because Abraham and Sarah tried to help God out. You know, we tend to do that, don't we? We try to help God out thinking, okay, this is what God wants, so I'm just going to make sure this happens, right? God doesn't need our help. Well, Abraham and Sarah tried, ended up with Ishmael, and that's the reason for all of the conflict in the Middle East today because of that. And so Abraham has Isaac, his only son through Sarah, takes him up Mount Moriah, going to offer him up as a sacrifice. God stops him, says, I was just testing you, not because God didn't know, but because Abraham didn't know. And now we have Isaac. It's almost as if Isaac is just that way that we get down to Jacob, because that's where the story begins. But Isaac, look at this, verse 20, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. That was the way in that day. You blessed your sons. Now, Esau was the oldest son. Esau was the woodsman. Isaac loved Esau more, you remember? And but Rebekah loved Jacob more, and so Rebekah deceived Isaac when he was old and got Jacob to dress up like Esau and put goat skins on his arms and cook the food, and he took it to his dad. And so his dad blessed him and gave him the great blessing. Esau comes along and he says, "What about me?" And Isaac says, I've done the blessing. I can't take that back. The blessing is irreversible. And so he gave him a blessing too, and he would become the father of a nation as well. But there would be constant conflict between those two, between Jacob and Esau. But here's my point, the power of the blessing. In fact, when we come down to verse 21, Jacob, by faith, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. What's the big deal there? Well, in the Old Testament, words have power. They still do, but we don't consider them to be such. But the blessing was everything. You were pouring out your blessing on that person, knowing that God was going to respond, that God was going to do something great. And they believed it with all of their heart. And so the blessing was important. So every time you come through the Old Testament and you begin to read the blessings, don't skim over them. You'll see that many of them have a lot to do with our history, but their future. And it's an amazing story to look at. But by faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshiped leaning on the top of his staff. That was important, the concept of worship, the concept of blessing. And you remember when Jacob blessed the sons of Joseph, Esau, Ephraim, and Manasseh, Joseph lined them up with the oldest on the right and the youngest on the left, and Jacob crossed his hands like this to bless them. And Joseph said, no, he's the oldest. And Jacob said, no, I bless the way that God tells me to bless. And ultimately, that was the story behind it. It was important to these men to be obedient to the Father. Verse 22, by faith, Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel and gave instructions concerning his bones. Now, he had no idea how long it was going to take for the people of Israel to get away from Egypt. They were in a good situation. They were growing in numbers, and ultimately the Egyptians became afraid of them and put them into slavery and forced them to do horrible manual labor, killed many of them, killed all of the babies, boys at one point. And they were there for 400 years. But Joseph said, when you leave here, and you will leave here, take my bones with me. See, God always offers that moment of hope, that moment of deliverance, that moment of fulfillment when everything comes together just like he said it would. Think about that today. God wants to do a work in your life. Let him. Be blessed. I'll see you back here tomorrow.